So it's important to know the gates for your voice, whether you're defined or undefined, and also
Mhm.
so that you can have a better understanding of those around you as well. Let's lessen some of these communication issues in the world.
We need it.
Let's do it. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Yes, let's get back into it.
Let's get back to it.
uh, yes, today we are continuing our exploration of the throat center. And we talked about the last time about the different dynamics of defined and undefined and what the throat center actually does. And we're not going to really discuss that in this episode because we have a lot to discuss with the 11 gates. So if you are curious more about the foundational piece there, just make sure you go back and listen to the previous episode, which should
Part
be
one.
Yeah, part one of the throat center. And then come back to this one where we're going to be digging into the different gates. So
lots of gates.
Lots of gates. This might be one of our shorter episodes. No, I'm just kidding. So, yes. So one thing we will say is that the most important part here, which applies here, is that where you have definition is where your voice is coming from. Okay. So if you have a defined throat center, that means that whatever creates that definition, that connection to your throat center, is actually where your voice is coming from. And it might not be the mind unless you have a connection to the mind. It can be other parts of your system. And then if you're undefined, remember, just because you're undefined doesn't mean you don't experience these themes and these archetypes. It's just inconsistent how you experience them. And if you have an undefined center but defined gates, hanging gates, we say, then how you experience the theme of that gate for you is going to vary depending on who you are around. So say you have just one gate, such as yourself, that is an undefined center. When you're around me, I have a defined throat, so it gives you defined energy that may be easier to access that voice, but it is going to, your voice is going to come through that filter of the gate that it has energized. Now, if you were to come in contact with a defined throat center that has that exact same connection, right? So so you have 45, say they're defined through the 4521.
Okay.
Your voice is going to be dominated by how they experience and how they express that energy. So it could be more frustrating for you. Yeah, because they have a dominant energy there. You will have access to it, but they are going to dominate it. But when you're around people who have defined throats, but maybe not that gate, such as myself, I don't have that gate. It's going to be how you are more comfortable expressing what is, your experience through that filter. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's important to know the gates for your voice, whether you're defined or undefined. And also so that you can have a better understanding of those around you as well. Let's lessen some of these communication issues in the world.
We need it.
Let's do it. Now, as far as communication issues, obviously, we are not going to be able to know the at least in the current state of our world, what everyone's definition is, regardless, of throat definition, of any kind of definition. That we come in contact with. Certainly we can look up our friends, our families. We have access to those things if they allow us to look up their time and date and all that other stuff to see their bodygraph. But we come in contact with a lot of people generally, And we're not going to know, but then if you know yourself and you know how you are designed, it can make it easier for you to recognize when you're quote unquote basically not being yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're responding to others and how they are. And so that's the beauty here, is that even though we're not going to know everybody's definition or design, we can know our own. And that's the only thing we can control anyhow,
Yeah.
right? Is how we are,
If you
right?
know yourself, then you kind of get like hints to other people's designs
Hmm.
based on like how you feel when you're around them.
Well, yeah, and there's a word that gets used a lot these days, triggering. Um, I think it's valid in some place. Sometimes I think it's overused, the word triggering, but it is kind of this triggering response. If you feel yourself getting triggered by certain people's words or actions, or just, them walking in a room, it can happen.
Hmm.
That's usually where it's an opportunity for you to look at yourself and say, okay, what is causing this? Right.
Hmm.
So like I said, we can only control ourselves. We can't control other
Right.
people. So get to know yourself. Good
That's
Lord.
the tagline of our podcast.
Get to know yourself. That's terrible, I should say. All right, so let's get started. So, as we said, there's functions of communication, manifestation, verbally or action.
Hmm.
So, we're going to start off with the primary gates of communication, that being at the top of the throat center, the gates that are connecting to the ajna. And so we're going to start over there with gate 62. Okay.
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 Gate 62 connects to gate 17 in the ajna.
Hmm.
And gate 62 is called preponderance of the small.
Oh.
It's the gate of detail, or
Mm.
the gate of preparation in quantum human design. And so the voice here, because each gate is going to have its voice, what it speaks,
Mhm.
what it says. The voice here is I think or not. And it's about communicating the details and the facts. Okay. So if you've been following along, this is in logical circuitry. And so these are people who have an eye for detail and who always need to know the facts.
Mm.
And it's a gate that helps organize and assemble and label the details of things in life and order all that into to basically formulas or things that can be clearly expressed. So it's designed to name and communicate a visual pattern, because we said in logical circuitry it is about being able to recognize patterns,
Mhm.
formulate ideas about them, opinions. This is the voice that expresses that.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
Okay. They can have an eye. They can have an eye for picking up very precise and sometimes obscure details, and they also have a gift, especially if they are connected to that 17, to explain the intangible, making it more accessible through clear and factual, logical expression.
Mm.
Yes. Again, when you wait to be asked to speak, they can address very complicated situations with a clear and appropriate, well organized, detailed insights and opinions that helps increase understanding for everyone.
Okay.
Hmm. So, your dad has this gate. He has a
Mm.
defined throat. He does have
Well,
DT.
yes, he is.
Hmm.
He's a manifesting generator.
Hmm. Yeah, looking at his design, I think he has the most, not surprisingly, he has the most throat activations in our
He
family.
is loud.
Now, that's not saying anything that defined throats are loud, but he does have a consistent way of speaking, which is
Yes, he does.
loudly. No, I think that's just because the poor man has reduced hearing in one ear,
He
but
does.
he does have a very commanding voice for sure.
It is.
Hmm. He definitely does. um, Interestingly enough, they say that this gate 62 is also what they call a cross cross species gait. So they have the potential to be able to communicate with and train animals.
He's sending us all of his animal friends out in his shed and out in work.
Okay. That statement you just made probably made no sense to anyone but me. No, he was actually good at training. Not so much Roxy, our dog now, because he has such a soft spot for her. But
Oh
when
yeah.
I first met him, he had a golden retriever, but he actually did um go through like formal training with her, and then he trained other dogs. But what is
Was
he
Zeppelin
all
or Rusty?
Zeppelin?
Zeppelin.
Um, but what does he always say? You just what do you do? He's like, you just
You just knee him in
hey,
the chest.
no, Haley, you can't say that. You have people thinking that he's abusing animals. No,
He
no, no.
doesn't.
No, it's not
Okay,
like that.
fine. Cut that out.
But what does he always say? You have to,
Yeah, it's
he's
a
always
like a grunt.
command. He always, yeah, has commands like, and they generally listen to him. He has a commanding voice for sure.
He does.
Yeah, he can talk to the animals. But anyways, what you were saying about him sending videos, we have a family Snapchat, and he's been sending us snail video, snail from his um
Yes.
uh
Shed
the
floor.
floor of a shed, which is very high resolution video of
Very good.
watching a snail move, which was very interesting actually. And
Was.
today he sent us a picture of a seagull on a buoy out in the middle of the ocean where he's at. Interesting guy.
Animals. He tracks the animals.
Gosh. Okay. Yeah. Moving on.
You're making it weirder than what I say.
You're right. I have a way of doing that. Anyways, okay, so moving on over to gate 23. Gate 23 is called splitting apart,
Oh.
and it's the gate of assimilation, or in quantum human design transmission. And so this is the voice of I know or not, and it's communicating individual insights, which we've obviously talked about this channel before a lot. It connects to the 43, and so it is that genius to freak channel, they call it. And
Which is a fun name.
it's a fun name. And it also is, it is called, the channel that it is there is called structuring. And so basically that's what it does, is it is taking these individual insights and giving language to it, which is not easy to do. And so there is a large part of, there's a very large part of timing playing into this gate. I mean, into all of them, but it, especially when you're experiencing it right now. I know what I'm trying to say, but I've gotta make the words for it. So it basically represents the potential ability to be able to put language around new concepts, new ideas that come from the 43. And like I said, this is a knowingness here. So there's no logic here. There's no experience from the past. It's just here. And this is what we know. And so I've often heard, which understanding this gate has been really helpful for me, because this is my main connection. It is what not motorized, is what defines my throat, is being given that grace to understand that people with this connection can tend to find it difficult to articulate, because sometimes, like Carrie Parker says, sometimes there just isn't language yet for what you're trying to say, because it's this new information coming through, right? So you're trying to assimilate it to be able to speak it, to transmit it. So that assimilation, that transmission, and it takes time. And that's why it's also important to not always just try to blurt out whatever it is that's coming through, because a lot of times it won't make sense.
So like, what in the hell?
Yeah. And I think you've had this experience with me that I'm like, I have the essence of something, that I want to I can deeply understand it in a sense of knowing, right? Like I know this to be true, like, but I just sometimes can't get there. But it does help to work in response or to wait. So, like I said, it's where inspiration, inner knowing, is translated into language and helps initiate others into new ways of thinking because it's individual circuitry. It's mutative. That's what it's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do. So that genius to freak thing is because if it's not the right time or you're not responding or you're not asked, it can certainly what you have to say can be misunderstood or just you're really looked at as like a weirdo because nobody understands what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But then because it's mutative, when it's the right time and the right people ask for it, literally they can think you are a genius. Like, how did you come up with that? How do you know these things? And you say, I don't know. It's just there. It's just there. So, yeah, what you're going to say to people can be very valuable, but you definitely have to wait with this one. And like I said, this has been one of the major gifts human design has given me is to learn when to be quiet
Mm-hmm.
and to not share everything I know because a lot of people don't care. But I don't feel that pressure anymore to be like, you have to know this. And I'm like, well, you know what? If they really have to know, they'll ask me for it. But
Yeah.
then I can have this podcast. I can say what I want to say when I want to say it. And it's up to them whether they listen to it or not.
Mm-hmm.
They might listen to it one day and hear it or not hear it. I mean, like not hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then,
Hear it, but not listen to it.
yeah, listen, but not hear it. Maybe the other way. Could be said
I
either
don't know.
way. Anyways, so yeah, strategy and authority, very important. Okay, next moving over to gate 56. This connects to gate 11.
Mm-hmm.
And gate 56 is called the Wanderer. It's the gate of
Like
stimulation.
wander or wonder.
Wander, like wandering around. The
Okay.
Wanderer.
Alrighty.
Uh, and quantum human design expansion. The voice here is I believe or not. And so this is the voice of this the stimulating, they say, storyteller.
I have a question. Did we kind of
Mhm.
say what the voice was for 23?
Yes, we did. I think it was I know or not.
Oh, yes, you did say that. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Knowing knowingness. So
So the
so if you
voice in
think
56 is what?
I believe, so
I believe. Okay.
the voice, if you look at it coming from the 62 logical, I think. From the
I know.
23, it's individual circuitry. I know it's a knowing circuit. And then this one over here, 56, is I believe. And we talked about that this circuitry is that abstract, is the
Mm-hmm.
experiential circuitry. It's sensing, right? And so when it says I believe or not, it's because it's taking the voice of experience
Mm-hmm.
and what they believe occurred, what their beliefs are. And so these are people who use their own past experiences in order to illustrate their beliefs, their concepts to help influence and stimulate others.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it is like I said, it's that where ideas are gathered through memory and then recollected and verbalized. So it's the voice of the storyteller and the philosopher that says, this is what I believe. And so
Okay.
the ideas here that are expressed are not always a solution, but rather a journey over
Mm-hmm.
time that this is how they came to this conclusion. And so this storytelling energy here is really looking for an emotional reaction from listeners. They're not really interested in proof or facts or details or anything like that. It is
Mm-hmm.
all about experience, their own experience in order to like make a point. And they're they like to tell stories. They're
Yeah.
storytellers. Because there's lots of ideas in that 11, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
they are always trying to express this creative, this experiential energy here. And they're often looking for new stories to tell, especially if they don't have gate 11. They're always looking for something to
Mm-hmm.
tell a story about. And
Because
so,
what? So you said that's a sensing circuit,
mhm.
which is that Is that within like a tribal or collective, or is that
Collective.
collective?
Collective. Yeah. So that being
Which makes
said,
sense having the stories.
right, to come out to the world. And so the challenge here, of course, is to tell stories that
Mm-hmm.
help expand, right, and do not contract or delete from the experience or from people. So to not get stuck in narratives that are limiting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like don't keep telling the same story of your possible victimhood or what
Mm-hmm.
the bad things of things. And also beware of gossip because you could definitely tell a story when you're
Oh
gossiping
yeah.
of what you believe
Mm-hmm.
happened, what you think happened, especially if you don't have that gate 11. You got all kinds of like, ooh, let's tell another story. So be mindful of the stories that are coming out of this expression, that they are uplifting and expansive and
And
not
beneficial.
and beneficial. That is a good word. Yes. Okay. So moving over to gate 35. Gate 35 is reaching down over to the solar plexus, connecting with gate
Mm-hmm.
36. And it is in the I Ching, it is called progress. It's the gate of change, and in quantum human design, experience. And so the voice here is I experienced slash feel or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is progress moving forward through experience. And so these are people who sample lots of different things in life in order to learn from them. So they're always ready to try new experiences, diving into new things without really giving thought to like repercussions, like what's going to happen. So it's a gate of hunger for something new, right?
Okay.
So because once they experience something, they're ready to, they've had the experience, they've they want to say what they've had to say about it. They talk about what they experienced or what they felt, but they're ready to move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like there's
Dwelling on
no
it.
staying energy. Yeah. It's a restless curiosity here. And they just are in this cycle of always wanting to do something new so that they can learn something new, so they can share it, right?
Sharon.
This is referred to, this channel is referred to, the keynote for this channel is Jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Because they can be multi-talented because they are trying to experience all these new things. And like I said, there's this restless curiosity here, and they have really this need or this want to explore for this sheer exhilaration of just doing it. And so it leads them to, they don't like boredom. They don't like just same old, same old. They want always something new happening.
So
Um,
maybe like little adrenaline junkies.
um, well, it's more like it's not so much adrenaline, it is being kind of up for anything, and but not really taking a beat. It's coming off that emotional center, so they should wait things out a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
to see if this is something they should get involved in and not just jump. Like if you have the full channel, you should be waiting for that wave. But if you don't, yeah, you could be driven to want to just kind of jump into things, because they do gain their wisdom from experience and they can give
Mm-hmm.
advice about what they learned through the experience. But it's kind of like, don't get addicted to just the experience. There's got to be some staying power at some point. And so over time, they can become wise about knowing what's worth, experiences are worth taking, and sharing that with people, what's worth getting involved in, and helping share their experience of that so that they can help with the collective sharing what's possible through that experience. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it connects to gate 36, gate of crisis, and so that is that emotional energy of like, well, let's see what happens. We need to do this. We need to just like explore. So there's, like I said, restless energy here. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
aware of that, then you'll know that you can maybe like take a beat
Ride your
and not,
wave.
yeah. Okay, so moving then down to gate 12. Gate 12 is
Mhm.
called the standstill, and it's also called the gate of caution. And in quantum human design, she calls it the channel, like a channel.
Oh.
So this voice is a little more, not complicated, but not so direct. It is the voice that says, I know I can try or not. And it says it's a socially conscious voice. So, okay, let me break this down a little bit. So this is part of that individual circuitry. It connects to the 22. So this channel of energy, this circuitry, I should say, starts in the 39, 55, 22 up to the 12. It's very emotional, kind of moody energy here.
Mhm.
And so this is a voice that there is kind of a little shyness there. They're more naturally cautious about other people understanding them clearly. And because it's very much tied to their mood of when they express. So they can be really articulate people and get the I want to say the point across, but are really able to articulate what they're feeling
Mhm.
when the mood is right. But if you try to push them to express when they're not in the mood, it's not good.
Mhm.
It can either shut them down, or they can't be forced to speak.
Mhm.
um it just won't work. But like I said, they can have a profound impact on those around them of being able to express these emotions and then evoke emotional responses in people when the
Mm.
timing is right, because it is giving voice to the emotional solar plexus. And that individual, really, the individual wave is about melancholy, it's about deep feelings. And so if you try to, like I said, if you imagine you try to force someone out of their more low end or their melancholy that they call it, or their sad time, it's just, they're not going to come
Ain't gonna
out
work.
right. It ain't going to work. So if they have the 20, or if they have this gate 12, but they don't have gate 22, they can express themselves, but they don't always know what they're feeling until maybe
Mm.
they do come into contact with someone with this definition. It could be easier for them to express, not to express, but to get clear on what they're trying to express.
Mhm.
They also say that this is an acoustic channel, so that these
Mm.
people can very much pick up on tone. They can hear the emotional quality through their own tone. And so a lot of times them speaking actually helps them get in touch with what it is they're actually feeling, because they can hear their own tone of voice. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So again, if they're not in the mood to speak, people generally won't hear what they want them to hear. And so it's definitely a kind of one of these aloneness areas. Well, they need alone time to kind of process what they're feeling. So that's why it's, called the gate of caution, because they're cautious. They know that they've learned probably over time that they aren't always received well, and how they're feeling isn't received if they're not in the mood to speak.
Mhm.
But it also says that when the time is right and they know they're ready to speak, they have the ability to like translate and creatively express like the overarching joys and sorrows of living and
Oh.
experiencing, and then just withdrawing. So I see this experience with someone I know that has this channel, and you can almost see when the timing is right, because in like social media posts or whatever, sometimes it's just normal stuff, but sometimes when she really expresses what she's processed and feeling, it is deep and it is impactful. It can hit you right, where you need to hear it. And it
Mhm.
does kind of apply to all of us. It's her understanding of the highs and lows of living. And it's really quite beautiful. So, anyways, okay, so moving on over to Gate 45, which you always get so
Yay.
excited. What is something about you?
I know, well, because
This is your gate.
I know.
Okay, so Gate 45 is called Gathering Together, and it's the gate of the gatherer. And in quantum human design, it's called distribution. And so this voice is I have or not. And it is the king or queen leading through education is what the keynotes are here for this gate. So these are people that are here to, I mean, basically, if you think of this monarch, this king or queen energy, um, it says that they are here to oversee the future and the wealth of a community. And it's symbolized by the king or queen. So this does connect to the will center. So it is about resources and how
Mhm.
resources are managed and controlled and distributed. So archetypically, it's kind of this autocratic tribal leader. It's the chief, it's the king, it's the
Mhm.
queen that says, that represents the voice of community and basically gives its final seal of approval to anything new, any new laws. You're like, okay, okay. It's a gate of dominance because it's the single voice of the tribe. It's I have,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
It's a very possessive gate of manifestation and action because the will center it's a motor. It has a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
power there. So the gate of the gatherer, though, is here to protect the tribe's resources, essentially. They are a natural guide for the tribe and they bring harmony. So, I mean, we do, I guess maybe because we're Americans, we have this negative connotation around the monarchy. Um,
Patriarchy.
right? Of one ruler type thing. And we are moving away from that. We are moving away from this dynamic of one ruler being able to say what's best for everybody, because that's just not going to
Mhm.
work anymore. But what do they say? Quite often we hear about the worst of the worst leaders, monarchs, kings. They make an impression, right? Because they
Yeah.
create a lot of issues and problems. But there's been just as many good leaders who really are more of that benevolent leader who really does care deeply about their people and
Mhm.
wants to help them all thrive. And so there is a lot of this energy here of I know what we should do with this. I have the ability to I have the resources and I want to help everybody. I want to make sure everybody's taken care of, and that's the good use of this energy and this voice. The 45 quite often needs that connection of the 21 because the 21 is like the prime minister or whatever. It helps control how things are distributed and managed because in a benevolent sense this is the king or queen that would just like let's just give it all away to everybody, but the
Mhm.
was like whoa, we've got to 21 helps direct that and manage it a little bit better about what the proper use of that would be. So these are people that are kind of designed in a way to be in charge. They really love to have other people working for them, doing the minutia, running their businesses or helping to manage their family affairs. Of course, there's a lot of potential here for unbalanced energy in this instance, and I think we see this a lot sometimes in some of our leaders, people that do have this energy. um it can be more of a diva, they call it, energy, or that more forceful top down autocratic hierarchical leadership that is
Mhm.
more selfish and rooted in lack, feeling they need to have everything, right?
Mhm.
They're more showing
Mhm.
off. This is where overcompensating for lack of self-worth can exhibit as narcissism because it's that voice of me, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know who we could be talking. I can't think of a real good example, but I think we already talked about an example once that does have this
Yeah.
connection. So these people that, if they're unbalanced, living in their shadow, can have that darker side to it and fear of not being seen as a leader, and then tend to react, overcompensate by being extremely controlling and selfish. So the challenge here is to share and use resources for the greater good of the whole and to manage resources so that they benefit the most amount of people and they have that energy to do it. So, that being said, how does that land for you?
I mean, I do see it because I do feel like I am the kind of person that wants to make sure like people have what they need,
Mm-hmm.
even though I may not always act that way, but it's how I feel on things. And then there are multiple instances where I didn't necessarily seek out to be a leader, but I ended up being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Like in
Yeah.
high school, I ended up taking over the lip dub. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't start it, Hunter started it. And then I somehow ended up in charge of it. And then, like in college, any group project, I ended up being the person that was like in
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one small part of that. I mean, it is the voice that speaks for you when when you have that motorized or not motorized, when you have that connection to a throat through definition, that yeah, you're going to have that leadership quality to your voice. Um,
Mhm.
and that, like I said, combined with lots of things in your chart, everybody here knows now that there's definitely a quality to that in your whole overall design, that you are designed to speak that way. Like, and I think that's what's really cool when you can look at the whole of a chart and see where there is any connection or definition or whatever in the throat, that you will see that the rest of the chart often supports that expression of how you get out into the world and express and communicate and do. I think it's very interesting. Okay, so let's go over now down to gate 33, which is
Woo-hoo.
connecting to the G center, connects through
Mhm,
the
mhm,
to the 13. And so gate 33 is called retreat, and it's the gate of privacy, and in
mm,
quantum human science called retelling. And so this voice says, I remember or not.
mm,
And this is sharing lessons from the past. So we have more of this experiential because it's in that circuitry of sensing and making sense of things through reflecting. And so these are people that need regular time alone in order to reflect on the past. They have the power to express their experiences through that sensing circuitry, but they need to withdraw into their privacy in order to process their experience. So you've got that storytelling energy that is floating around up there through the top part,
mhm,
but this is like going deep. This is the person that really has the potential and the power to take that time to reflect on possibly the stories that have been told before and say, is this the story I really want to tell? Maybe I want to tell a new story. That's the
mhm,
retelling part of it. You can change your past experience by how you express moving forward what actually happened.
mhm,
They say
mhm,
that all the time. They're like, oh, you can change your thoughts, but it's too much for me to understand. I can understand it for myself, but when I try to explain it, they say that you literally, because of time doesn't really work in a linear fashion, that there's all these quantum realities of things that are occurring all at once, that you literally can, if you start through this energy of telling a new story, a new narrative,
mhm,
can actually change your past experience and what really happened. And this is where forgiveness lives in the chart, which is
mm.
very
Okay.
interesting. Has the power to, because that's what forgiveness can. You can, and I learned this through all the lessons in A Course in Miracles, and what that's really all about is this way to see things differently and turning it over to this more open space of like, okay, I've been telling myself this story all along of what happened. I don't really know what happened. I'm going to
Mhm,
be open to the possibility that I can be shown a different way of what happened, right?
mhm,
And that's where forgiveness comes from, is being able to see things differently. So, yeah, so this is someone who can show sides of a story and also what we can learn from that experience, any lessons that are there. They can be powerful speakers, writers, teachers, and these are people that need to understand that they're probably going to become more influential the older that they get, because you gain more wisdom and experience and you have more things
mhm,
to reflect
mhm,
on to see what happened. So but they definitely need that time to retreat, pause, reflect. So again, timing, right time. You can't share. I mean, you can, but to really give it time to marinate and know what it is that you experience. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah. You got to know what you experienced before you tell someone else what you experienced.
Right. And you got to know what it meant. And you should
Mm-hmm.
probably take the time to really evaluate that and not just rush to judgment, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where we can get into more disempowering stories. Because, quite frankly, right, when we first experience something, especially if it's a negative experience, we have this visceral reaction and we,
Mm-hmm.
can get stuck there in victimhood or blaming. When step back, what part did I play in that? What did I learn? Okay. So, moving over to gate 8, holding together the gate of contribution,
Mm-hmm.
and in quantum human design, fulfillment. And so this voice says, I can make a unique contribution or not. And so this is unique self
That one's
expression
got a lot to say.
or not.
Or not.
Well, this connects to gate 1 in the G center.
Mm-hmm.
Gate
Uh-huh.
1 is all about the individual voice, or the
Okay.
individual. The When we talked in the G center about one is I am who I am. It's just, this is me.
Right.
It's the ultimate creative individual, or what it means to be an individual. And so this voice is about expressing that. And so the people
Mm-hmm.
with this voice have a gift of knowing how to draw people's attention, it says, to a truth. Okay.
Okay.
So these are people that have this need to express their own individual contribution as well as that of others. So they're either looking for someone or something to promote. If it's not their own voice,
Mm-hmm.
not their own expression, they're looking to express. So they relate it to like an agent or a gallery owner, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they want to promote the unique contributions of either others or themselves.
Right.
So they have the ability to get up and get everyone's attention. And even if no one actually follows them going their own path will also be a contribution, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it can be, so this contribution can either through, like I said, either be a public outward display of your own individual lifestyle and direction and creations, or like I said, by showcasing or empowering or promoting others and individual contributions. So they are always drawn to what is new, innovative, and can often find themselves attracting other people's attention to whatever it is they're promoting. So,
Makes sense.
and then once you get people's attention, they can either lead by example and people can choose to follow or not. But basically, you're promoting your contribution is new ideas. It's because it's individual, it's mutative energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've
Mm-hmm.
been driving that point home. um, and so this, I do have this gate, and it's my conscious earth gate.
Oh.
It's not connected to the G center, it's a hanging gate. And so, yeah, it says that if you don't have the gate 1, right, which I
Uh-huh.
do not, that means that the key role I'm here to play may not be as the creative, the artist, the thing, but as one who promotes other artists' visions or new ideas.
Okay.
So I was
Okay.
like, what is my contribution to the whole? Right. And so
This podcast.
I'll tell you, I'm still working that out half the time. But it makes more sense. It makes this gate makes more sense to me now
Mm-hmm.
as I have deepened my understanding of human design, and understanding that I really do feel that yeah, I feel that as a call for me to help promote these ideas and people who help share these ideas, because I think they're important and they're definitely different. I definitely do. And I
Mhm.
have to do it in my own way, which there is a challenge there because there are great voices here that are also contributing their understanding of it. And I have to find my own way of doing it. And I'll tell you what, the we haven't talked really too much about it here, the study or the work of Richard Rudd and the gene keys, but it's a deeper. He did train with Ra
Mhm.
originally with human design, but then he kind of went off and did his own thing, gene keys, which is really super like deep contemplative work. And I've listened and read his thoughts because he does the shadow, the gift, and the exalted energies here of these gates, or what he calls keys. And when I first heard him talking about the shadow of this one and my conscious son, it just like it was like a gut punch because it's so accurate. And that's the human design system as a whole. It was delivered more towards the quote unquote shadow side of us because that's
Mhm.
kind of where we were. But people are evolving now and it's happening much quicker, which is the quantum human design. And what Karen Parker does is let's move forward. But anyways, so this is called contribution. Like he calls it, he says the gift here is style, but he says the
Mhm.
shadow is mediocrity.
Oh.
Just being mediocre. I was like, oh gosh, of not allowing yourself to shine, of not allowing your unique contribution. And so there is a lot of this here. You have to like find your authentic expression and
Mhm.
just go for it. So if you have the gate one, it is truly about expressing yourself and who you are in your own unique, creative, individual way. So that's the gate eight. And over to gate 31. Uh, Gate 31, also connected to the G Center, is called influence. It's the gate of influence, and it's also called the leader. And this is I lead or not. And then this is the influential elected leader. So this is leadership, but this is democratic leadership. This is where
Mhm.
basically democracy lives in the chart. And the gate that it connects to, gate 7, when we went through the G Center, was about this ability to choose who you are and who you want to be and making that choice of how you want to be in the world. And so this 31, these are people who are best at showing others how to achieve their future goals rather than leading them there themselves. Okay, so as I said, these are they're designed to influence people with their voice. And it's not that hierarchical leadership top down, but it is that elected leadership. It provides the vision for a new direction and shows others how to achieve it rather than like doing it for them, because democracy is the voice of the people and it is
Mhm.
about empowering individuals to have that say into what we want to create, where we want to go, who we want to be, right? So it manifests this potential for verbal influence through recognition, through um, election. They Now it doesn't have to be an actual government, but it is when people, you're basically responding to that leadership projection in a way. People look to you and say, um, okay, how can we do this? And then when
Mhm.
you are asked that, then you can then lead people in that direction of where they need to go. This is not influence that money can buy, right? It's not, I'm going to be the leader and I'm going to put myself in that position. No, you can't put yourself in
Mhm.
this position of leadership and influence here. If you try that, it's either not going to be heard or it's not going to work out.
It won't be good.
Yeah. And so you've got to understand, if you have this activation, that you do have influence over people. And so to be mindful of how you're influencing them, because it's not the gate of good influence, it's just influence. So that could be good or bad, right?
Mhm.
So need to be careful there because you do have the ability of transferring this vision for something new. So it's learning that your leadership is your position of leadership is as a representation of people. It's not your own self, right?
Hmm.
Um, and to also be willing to step into that position of leadership, because when people do ask you to lead or look to you for your vision, your influence, if they're coming to you and you're responding appropriately through your strategy and authority, you are the right person for the job. It is your
Hmm.
right place. You're here to do that and to not hide out and be afraid of your own influence. All right, so gate 20, which connects to the spleen. Gate, well, it connects to a few things. Actually, I should re-say that.
Yeah,
Re-say
that's
that.
just the
Spleen,
multi-level
sacral,
one.
spleen, sacral, and G center. So gate 20 is called contemplation, and it's the gate of the now. And in quantum human design, it is patience. And the voice here is I am now or not, which is a little confusing, but it's about
Yeah.
instantaneous clarity in action and or action. So these are people who can only see life in the present moment and everything has to be now. It's the gate of the now. So there are a couple different connections here. As we
Hmm.
said, it's going to play out a little bit differently. um, these are people who are designed, that doesn't mean they are, but they are designed to be totally absorbed in the present moment. And so it keeps you focused in the present for your own survival and existence and future motion. And basically, being in the now helps support your ability to survive as yourself. So let's break this down a little bit. So when your expression is properly timed, your awareness of what's going on can be transformed into words or actions that then impact the people around you. So we talked a little bit before about the 3420, I think in the
Yes,
previous
the
episode.
manifesting.
Manifesting generator, pure manifesting generator channel, and it being very quick. So that 3420 connection gets that sacral energy, that power into action through individuation, it says. So basically, that connection there, as we said, is very quick. It is very responsive. It is the person that can literally just get up and go do. It's fast. It
Hmm.
moves very fast. But they have to be aware of what's happening in the moment to respond to it, to be able to then go do correctly.
Hmm.
If it's connected to gate 57, it is,
57, which is in the spleen.
yeah, it gives voice to gate 57 and to its survival awareness. So it can communicate, as we talked about, it's giving voice to the spleen, like you
Hmm.
said. If it's connected to the 10, it is connecting to the behavioral patterns and commitments to a higher principle. That's wordy, but basically, gate 10 is that it is around behavior and what it means to be the individual and have that sense of awareness and self love. It's a gate of love and self love. So it's giving voice to that. When connected to the 10, the 20, when it's connected to the 10, it expresses basically who we are, and that's according to the line number that is also associated with that, whatever 10 line number it's connected to, which is more detail than we need to go into. um so if it's not connected to a motor, 20, gate 20,
Hmm.
so the only motor it would be connected to would be the sacral, right?
Sacral. Hmm.
But when it's not connected to the 20, it is a verbal gate rather than an action gate. So
When
they,
it's not connected to a motor.
right, right. So,
Okay, makes sense. It makes sense.
mhm, right. So this 1020 that we were talking about, this 2010, 1020, 2010. This is what we talked about, being that verbal gunslinger, because it is
Mm,
expressing who you are, right? Like it says who we
right.
are. It's that vulnerable voice there of the G center through the 1020, because it's in the now, and it's the, you might think you're going to say something else, or you wanted to say something else, but then in the moment when you open your mouth, like I said,
What
what
came
could
out?
come out could be very hurtful, because it feels vulnerable or attacked at times, so it can be that instantaneous regretful voice, giving voice to how they were
Mhm.
feeling about
Yeah.
who they are. And we talked about the 57, right? Survival awareness, being able to
Hmm.
speak what the body is feeling, giving voice to the body. Wow,
Hmm.
we spent a lot of time here. You can tell where I really
Yeah.
struggle with certain games.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah,
And
it's
that was one.
tomorrow. It's tomorrow already. Okay. All right.
But it's interesting because that is one of your bridge gates, but you don't.
Really
It is a
understand it.
big struggle.
It's a big struggle. But basically, 20 can express the full range of being in the moment, from I am to I know to I'm doing all these things. It's not past or present. It's very much in the now. It's a present voice, depending
Mhm.
on where it's connected to, what it's giving voice to. So let's move on to our last gate, gate
Already.
16. Already 3 hours later. No. Okay. Gate 16 is referred to as enthusiasm, and it's the gate of skills, and in quantum human design, zest.
Oh,
It is the voice of I experiment or identify or not. And it's about skillfully mastering something.
okay.
These are people who can never, or feel like they can never have enough skills,
Mm.
or that they are skilled, or that they have enough skills. They like acquiring new skills, diving into new talents, often without thought or preparation. So when you say zest or enthusiasm, it's like, oh, let's try this. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do this, right? Without kind of
Hmm.
getting too deep into anything. If they don't have the gate 48, they can tend to just always want to,
I like how
oh,
it kind of mirrors 35 there about the
yeah,
experiences.
yeah, it does. Um, and this gate though represents being able to um hold on to an artistic quality or scientific skill, artistic skill, through repetition, that they can then over time master. So, gate 16, you can eventually make your mark in the world as seen as someone has a keen eye, or a keen critic, or a skilled performer, or whatever, through your talent and your
Hmm.
enthusiasm for living. So this gate, they say, is really about when the dancer becomes the dance. When somebody has really perfected, and over time, repetition, taking the time to really hone their skill,
Hmm.
that there's almost a line, there is no line between who they are and their talent,
It's just kind of
basically.
very effortless.
Yeah, because they become so masterful at it. And so it's very interesting. It makes sense. This is why I love circuitry so much too, is because it is the continuation of that 58-18, and then it goes 48-16, okay, up to
Hmm.
the throat. And that is very much this energy of refining, of repetition, of seeing what is work. How can it be improved? Right, that's what that 18
Hmm.
does, is how can it be improved, what can we do to improve it and go deeper. And that gate 8 is the well. It's about going deep into it, and then applying that depth to the skill for mastery over time. Well, the 16 without that connection to the 8 or 48, sorry, can tend to, like we said, just try lots of different things, but never
Hmm.
really going too deep into anything. And also, the people with 48 without the 16 can feel like they have all this depth, but they don't know what to apply it to. And so they feel like they
Okay,
never
so
have
you
enough.
said that 48 was the well.
Hmm.
I think you may have said 8 there when you were
I
explaining it a
said 8
second
and then I
ago.
said 48. I don't know.
No, but
Whatever.
before you corrected yourself
Before,
that time.
before?
Yeah, before. Details.
Yeah. So the thing is it's great, this enthusiasm and this zest for living, because it does get them exposed to different things, because you're not necessarily always born knowing really
Hmm.
what your skill set is and what you're going to get dedicate your quote unquote dedicate your life to. And so there is that need to kind of figure it out. But um you're really always looking for a way with this gate to the perfect way to express your skill
Hmm.
set or your expertise.
So would these be people that would seem like they could pick up a skill really quickly?
They'll try to, but then they could also just as easily drop it if they don't have the full connection. But if they have that
Hmm.
full channel, the full channel is called the wavelength, and it is the design of talent. And these are people who do have that design, if they have that full channel of
Hmm.
being the master of their craft. They have the energy for that. But you got to be able to stick through it. You got to go deep and you got
Hmm.
to repeat in order to become a master at something. You don't just like, hey, today I'm going to start trying this and, I'll give it
I'm
3
gonna be a
tries.
master by the end of the day.
No, it doesn't work. It needs that repetition. So that is that voice there of experimenting and repetition and becoming masterful. All right. So that concludes all the gates
Hmm.
individually through the throat
Yes.
center. And so now that we have gone through all of them, I would like to point out and have people remember that just like the science of actual genetics, human design is not a cut and dry affair. Everything we see in the chart is not absolutes, right? There's
Hmm.
variations on everything. Every gate we just discussed is a general archetype and a general expression, but how it actually plays out in everybody's design is going to be completely different. We were able to identify certain markers based on these generalizations, but you know, your dad and Presley are two very different people, even though
Hmm.
they have the same gate here because of how all the intricacies of their design come together. So
Hmm.
these are just generalities that I think help out when we're talking about understanding really where your voice comes from and what part of your energetic makeup, what part of your self is trying to be expressed when you speak,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, because they
So,
all can have kind of little different flavorings to them.
mhm. Yeah. And what I also want people with undefined throats, I think, get shut down a lot or have this feeling of being shut down that they'll never be heard because, oh, I don't have a voice. No, you do have a voice. You have
Hmm.
a wonderful voice. And so there's people that are undefined voices who are very gifted. Like I said, Marianne Williamson, very gifted speaker. Also Bill Clinton, was always known for his oratory skills and how he can connect with people. Undefined throat, powerful voices. I often look when I'm always looking at celebrities or people that catch my eye, what their definition is. And I'm quite often surprised, like Bruce Springsteen, I believe, has an undefined throat. um, John Lennon, Elvis Presley, Pavarotti. These are people who are known for their singing and their power and their
Hmm.
voices, undefined throats. So it's could be also why they connect so easily with people because they are undefined. How they
Yeah.
express is, you know, beautiful. Okay, so also some other things, variations. So even if somebody has a defined throat, if that connection is in the unconscious side, the design
Hmm.
side, they
Hmm.
might not also recognize that that is where their voice is coming from, right?
Hmm.
So they could find it, even though they're defined, they could find it very difficult to articulate what it is that their voice wants to, what is trying to come through them if it's
Hmm.
unconscious. So Point being, your dad has that connection to his throat, 3420. It's unconscious. So he's
Mhm.
not always clear. Um, Myself, I have the 4323, but my 23 is
Mhm.
unconscious. The
Mm.
design side. It is a little harder for me to access that. Even though it's consistent, it's not something I can like really actively myself
It's not as prominent.
access. Yeah. It's something other people might see. Like I don't know when I'm effectively communicating or not. That's why I'm always saying, does that make sense? And you'll say, yeah, or I come back to you and I say, I feel like I really muddied that up and I didn't. You're like, no, you made your point. It came across. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, because I can't always recognize that. And so
Mhm.
like I said, so I have a defined energy, but it's not always to me recognizable as being
Mhm.
articulate. Maybe people are nodding along going, maybe you're not articulate. Okay. Um so anyways, it's really about, hopefully this exploration is for people to have a look at their chart, see what their definition or non-definition. And also, if you're completely open here, there's no activations in your throat whatsoever, you really are gifted in how you speak and how you bring things out into the world, because there is not going to be one filtered way of you
Mhm.
experiencing everything or experiencing how to articulate. You can literally tap into anyone around you and use their energy to help you express without any extra. I mean, there still can be conditioning in all of us in all places, but there's not going to be a theme of conditioning there. It's you're basically probably very gifted at communicating once you tap into it and realize that's what your strength is. Okay, so again, know your voice, know your strategy, know your authority. You're good. Simple.
Yeah,
So
so
simple.
simple.
It's so easy. Okay, so wow, we have now gone through all the centers
Yeah.
in the human design body graph. And again, like to remind everybody that I'll use my voice now to ask you to give us a little rating on the podcast platform that you listen to, and listen
Listen on.
to help get our voices out there into the world, hopefully for more of everyone, for more people out there to hear what we have to say, because we enjoy being here. We enjoy
We have
talking.
fun.
Yeah. Hopefully you enjoy listening. And if so, share the love with the whole world out there. So, that being said, anything else you'd like to add, Haley?
Um, I don't think so. I think you
No.
articulated it well.
We don't need to express any of your needs or wants right now through your gate
No,
45.
I feel satisfied now.
You just need to go eat some lunch.
That wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody listening today. And until next time, we'll say goodbye. So, goodbye.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.